Last week, I sat down for lunch with my friend Brian Dean, and today I'm going to share with you his thoughts on the future of SEO as we know it. If you don't know who Brian is, he is one of the biggest names in SEO. He built the SEO education company Backlinko from the ground up into a small empire. People all over the world will turn to Brian for his insights, his case studies, and massive and useful guides on how to optimize their SEO. He built a huge audience on YouTube, a newsletter with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, reeling in more than 500,000 website visitors per month, and establishing himself as one of the most knowledgeable people on earth about search engine optimization. So I asked, what do you think is the future of SEO given all these advancements in AI? He said, when it comes to SEO, AI is a short-term opportunity and a long-term threat. So I did what any of you would do. I grilled him about it. And in this video, I'm going to break down everything he said so you can leverage that knowledge to get ahead with your own SEO strategy in 2025. At the end of this video, I'm also going to share specific advice that he has for anybody who works in e-commerce. With that, let's dive in. So the first thing I did was ask him more about the future of SEO and AI and this whole short-term opportunity, long-term threat thing that he said. Here's what he meant. It's a short-term opportunity because you can do more with less. In previous years, you would need a whole SEO department, a staff writer, keyword researchers, editors, designers, topic clustering, technical SEO, the list goes on. Now, as long as you know how to use AI to ramp up your SEO efforts, with AI, you could have a team of 15 people doing the work of 100. That said, if you're just using AI to create generic garbage content, it's not really going to help. But if you look at a really effective SEO process where you know exactly what people are searching for, what content works and doesn't work, and you've got a process for optimizing your own SEO, then you can start using AI to make this strategy more and more effective. So that means figuring out what's working for you already, understanding that process, and then breaking it down into microprocesses that an LLM can take over for you. And people are already doing this, with a reported 86% of SEO professionals already using AI in their strategy. Now, here's why he sees it as a long-term threat. Brian predicts that people will increasingly use LLMs over Google for normal searches. And what he says makes sense, that an LLM search is just objectively better. You get an immediate answer with no clicking, no cookies, no pop-ups, just the answer. And what's more important is that you can have a conversation about that answer. Here's an example that he gave from his own life. He's been having some knee pain recently, and he's been using GPT like his own PT. He said, normally I would have just gone to Google and Googled exercises for knee pain. It'd be helpful, you'd get some suggestions, things like that. But the LLM is a game changer. He said, after going through all of my symptoms, I said, can you make me an exercise plan so that I can get back to playing tennis as soon as possible? And it created an entire rehab plan. As he learned things about his symptoms, the pain, the injury, he would update the LLM and it would change the plan in real time, while remembering everything he'd already said previously in the conversation. He'd say, this exercise hurt, or this one was a little too difficult, and it would adapt the plan each time. It'd tell him which part of the knee was strong, where the problem areas were, and what to do about it. Obviously, this is superior to a normal Google search. Brian says if you're in a tech-heavy space, this change from Google to LLMs is going to happen a lot faster. So if you're targeting coders, marketers, any tech-savvy people, you are going to see this shift happen sooner in your own space. But if you've ever tried to teach your parents how to use an LLM, then you can imagine that the late adopting community is going to take a lot longer before this is the norm. Now, how to optimize for LLMs is going to be the million-dollar question. And Brian thinks it's going to be a lot of the same stuff. For example, with technical SEO, he said you'll still need to get your pages crawled and indexed to appear on Google's index so you can rank. The LLM also needs to crawl and read your page so it can appear in the corpus. That way it can train on your content and then cite you when somebody else searches something that you have in your knowledge base. Now, if you want to get referral traffic from an LLM, who do you think they're going to cite? Largely, that's going to be authoritative resources that are already largely trusted, since those sources are going to look a lot better than the weaker sources, things like social media posts, Reddit threads, things like that. So he says links and brand signals are the way to go. So if you build a brand that people know and cite often, the LLM is also going to cite you. And if citations become the new rankings, whether it's Google AI overviews or an LLM-focused search, you'll be in good shape. He doesn't see it requiring a dramatically different approach because LLMs are likely to default to a lot of the same signals that Google already does. It's just the output that's going to be different. So for you, that means you should continue to make content around user intent rather than just focusing on keywords alone. Think of as many questions as you possibly can around your subject and then write answers to them. Focus on quality over quantity. Create detailed and engaging content so you give these LLMs as much to work with as possible. Make sure that you're using natural sounding, conversational language, efficient site architecture, and make sure you've got fast page speeds. AI systems interpret the logical flow of content in addition to how digestible that content is for users. So use formatting, headlines, bullet points, and clear understanding to enhance the user engagement and make it easier for LLMs to cite you as a source. The next thing I asked Brian about was something that's been popping up as the next big thing for a while now, and that's voice search. Voice search is going to be a big part of search in the future. It's been hyped for a long time, but the tech just wasn't there to support it. Now, that's in terms of understanding and transcribing text, translating text, and giving useful results. For certain things, it was useful, like asking Alexa what the weather is today, or when Bob Dylan was born, but for actual important things, it really wasn't useful. It's superior to typing. I mean, it's faster and it's easier, and those are the two things he said that you always need to become popular. The LLM transcription and comprehension is so advanced now that you don't need to turn your thoughts and your desires into what he called robot speak. He said, sometimes I'll use 2 to 3 minute voice searches with an LLM if I want to do something more complicated. And people are going to be using it more than ever now that it works so well. I mean, it's always going to be easier to speak than to type. He gives an example of why in sci-fi movies they're always talking to computers. But in the past, the tech just wasn't there to give you an output that matched what you needed. He said it's not something that you necessarily need to optimize for because every search is going to be so different. He gives an interesting example that two people who are looking for the same thing on Google will probably use remarkably similar searches. But if you're dictating that search to an LLM, those searches are going to look completely different. The next thing that I asked him is something that I'm sure that you're curious about as well, which is what does this all mean for social media marketing? He said, it's changing SEO in the sense that personal brands are going to be more important than ever before. Here's how he broke it down. Traditionally, you'd search something like best supplements for a 40-year-old, and you'd see WebMD, Healthline, some of these big brands, and you'd click based on how authoritative they were. But now, two big shifts are happening because of social. Brian says people don't want to see these big brands in the SERPs anymore. They want to see people that they know and trust. He said, if I were personally searching for this keyword, I would want to see results from people like Andrew Huberman, Peter Attia. He said, I'd want to see experts in health and fitness that I follow on social media. I want to see them represented on Google. When I'm scrolling through social media, I don't see a post from Healthline or WebMD. He pointed out something else that was really interesting too, and that is how weird it is that we have these parallel universes with search and influencers. He pointed out how it's the same thing within the travel space. If you Google something like best things to do in Italy, you're going to see results from big brands like TripAdvisor. But what you might really want to hear is from influencers who are posting about their own personal experiences and trips, from people like Nomadic Matt. He said it's going to change SEO in terms of supply and demand. When people are searching for these keywords, it's going to increasingly be results from influencers. Even if they don't search for a specific influencer, they're going to want to see them represented in the search results. So, what do you do if you want to stay ahead of the game? You could create a post like, here are the supplements that Andrew Huberman recommends, and then you can go through the transcript of his podcast and create a blog post about the supplements that he recommends. This is going to help you rank for those specific keywords, as well as for phrases like best supplements for a 40-year-old. So, the game is changing, yes, but what does that mean for one of the first steps people take in optimizing their SEO? In other words, what is the future of AI keyword research? And clearly people are curious. I mean, AI keyword research has seen some crazy increased growth recently. So I asked him, how do you know what topics to cover? And here's what Brian said. Just focus on topics instead of keywords. And again, he pointed out the way that people search in an LLM is just so different from how they search in Google. With Google, people use what he calls robot speak. And it's true, if you're Googling something, you have this idea of what you want to learn in your head, and you condense that into a search that only has very specific keywords. So let's side by side the same search on Google versus with an LLM. Let's say you want to know what are the leading causes of heart disease for men under the age of 50. On Google, you might type something like heart disease, older men statistics. Within an LLM like GPT, you'd probably search for something like, what are the leading causes of heart disease in men under 50? I am X age and I want to know what my risk factors are. Pretty different searches. So basically, you're going to focus more on the topic and less on the way that somebody's searching for the topic. So how do you prepare for this? If you've got a health blog or a business around health, then yeah, you're going to create content about people's risk factors for specific diseases. As for the keyword research strategy, he says for now you can still go about this in the traditional way. But he says in the future, get away from thinking about how somebody's Googling something and thinking more about the topic as a whole. Because of LLMs, people are searching things in vastly different ways. As a side note, if you want LLMs to use your content as a source, here's a couple things you need to do. Make sure your robot.txt files allows search engine crawlers to index your page. Provide a sitemap to guide crawlers to all of your key pages. And make sure to write in clear, natural language. So recently I've been seeing a trend of people switching from Google to social media sites to conduct their product research. So I had to ask, what are his thoughts on social search as it compares to Google? He said, it's one of those things that's been a threat to Google for so long, and I still don't think it'll be a threat to Google compared to AI. The problem is the results are just not nearly as good when compared to Google because they're social media sites and Google is a search engine. Take X, for example. There is so much content on there. But if you try to search for something to find it, it is a nightmare. Maybe it's because they don't focus on search. Now, YouTube is obviously much better as a search engine, but even then, most YouTube views are from browse features, because a lot of the time when people get on YouTube, they're bored and they're just looking for something to watch. He said, yes, it's huge, it's important, but it's not really taking away any searches from Google. One theory he had is that because these social media sites have poured so much money into their algorithms, those algorithms just kind of replace search by showing you what you already want to see. He said, think, what percentage of time or actions on these social media sites is actually dedicated to search? Probably less than 1%, because when you go on these platforms, you're just hit with so much targeted content specifically for you that you don't really need to search for anything. They are designed to tap into the dopamine in your brain, which is just so much more effective than optimizing for search. And that's true when you think about companies like Meta or ByteDance, the company that owns TikTok. They don't tell you exactly how much money they've spent developing their algorithms, but we know those numbers are in the billions. So, while Brian says it is important for your brand to show up on social search, he does not think that it's necessary to optimize all of your brand's pages for social search. So lastly, I said, look, a lot of our viewers are in the e-commerce space, so what specific advice do you have for them given all of these questions I've asked? He said he thinks this is going to be one of the last areas to really be hit and affected by AI. Why? Because on Google right now, you can very easily search, shop, research, and buy. With an LLM, you can't really do that as easily just yet. Now, if trustworthy AI agents get popularized for e-commerce, that would be a game changer. Investors, listen up. You could open up an LLM and say, hey, I want a shoe that's this exact shoe size made for these exact purposes. And an AI agent would go out, find the best price, find the best product for you, and then allow you to check out easily. For now, he says take the same steps you normally would to optimize any e-commerce site for SEO. Just make sure that your pages are text-heavy, indexed, crawled, and that you're publishing content that people are searching for, even when they're not really searching. He also clarifies you should have a mix of top-of-funnel and bottom-of-funnel content. For example, if you sell tennis rackets, your bottom-of-funnel content might look like what is the best racket for an intermediate player who's looking to add more spin. Whereas top-of-funnel content might be something like how to serve in tennis or how to slice, as well as things like best tennis rackets for kids, best tennis rackets for left-handed players. You can create content about equipment or products that you don't sell but people are already interested in, like the best tennis shoes for this specific type of match. Now that's it for right now. As you imagine, Brian had a lot to say on this subject, and we've actually got a blog post on the SEMrush blog where he goes into more depth about his thoughts on the future of SEO and AI. Now, if you have any specific questions, I'd love to have a chat with you in the comment section below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.